Welcome back, folks. Today it's time to get back to the 6.5 Grendel. The poor Grendel's kind of taken a little bit of a back seat here for the last month or two as we played around so much in 6.5 Creedmoor, and I just haven't taken the time to make many Grendel videos. So today I want to make a Grendel video, and I want to do something a little bit weird. I want to shoot the heaviest bullet I've ever shot in the Grendel, and we're going to choose the Hornady 140 grain boat tail hollow point. There are a couple reasons why I want to try this guy. For one, I've got a bunch of them. I bought a big box of 500 kind of as a general purpose bullet in the Creedmoor, and I've found that they shoot amazing in 6.5 Creedmoor, like really good. And I'm hoping that outstanding accuracy will translate over here to the Creedmoor. This is a traditionally shaped match bullet, you might say. You know, the trend these days is the super high BC bullets that are long and have their fancy ogives. This one's pretty short, which should work to our advantage, right? Our velocities in the Grendel are going to be lower than they were in the Creedmoor, and velocity and stability go hand in hand, right? So I'm thinking we're not going to have any problem stabilizing this bullet at the velocities we're going to be shooting. I'm guessing we're probably going to top out at around 2,250 feet per second. We've been down nearly that low from the 6.5 Creedmoor. It's also a 1-in-8 twist barrel. Our Faxon barrel in our Creedmoor is a 1-in-8 twist barrel. So I'm hoping this is going to work. I don't know if I was kind of a little bit rambly there, but I'm hoping that this bullet's going to be short enough and we're going to be able to get it going fast enough to stabilize okay in the Grendel. I really don't expect to have problems. Now, the last 6.5 Grendel videos we did were with the 135 grain Berger Classic Hunter. So we were almost 140 here, and those 135s shot amazingly well. So I have a feeling we're going to see similar performance here with the 140. I think this guy is going to shoot amazing. If it does, maybe we'll continue to push it in future videos, try some heavier and heavier bullets to find out at what point and at what velocities we really start losing stabilization with the Grendel. That might be fun, but I don't think it's going to be a factor today. Now, there's no load data for this sort of nonsense that I know of. Most of your sources, your Hornady manual, your Hodgdon website, they stop at 123 grain bullets. Sierra goes to 130. Berger did give us some data for that 135 Berger Classic Hunter, I think. The Western load guide tops out at 130. So I don't know of any good data, so we're making it up as we go. So I took that into account whenever I chose powders. The first powder I want to use is Accurate 2520. With the 135 grain Berger, we went up to 29 grains. So I want to back that off by 1 grain and shoot up to 28.0. I don't want to go too low, right? We need to keep the velocity up there to keep these guys stabilized, I think. I might be crazy, and maybe that would make for a decent follow-up video. Instead of, going heavier and heavier with bullets, we could take this heavy bullet, assuming it stabilizes and shoots well in this one, and load it down to slower velocities and see where we lose stabilization. I don't know, man. I'm just kind of thinking out loud, just, throwing some crap at the wall here. But for today, Accurate 2520, we're going to go up to 28.0 grains. I want to shoot 0.3 of a grain increments, so that puts us starting at 26.8. So I think we'll be okay there with Accurate 2520. Now, for the second powder, I want to shoot Alliant Power Pro 2000 MR. I kind of went back and forth about whether I wanted to shoot 2000 MR or whether I wanted to shoot Power Pro Varmint. From my experience, this powder's, a good deal slower than your Accurate 2520s or maybe your CFE 223s or your Hodgdon Lever Evolution. I think Power Pro Varmint probably belongs on the faster end of that group, and then this is kind of on the slower end of that group. But with the heavier bullet, I figured let's just take the slower option, the slower burning option. So I hope you guys are following this. I'm confusing myself, kind of rambling a little bit here. But so we're going to shoot up to 29.0 grains with this guy. That puts us starting at 27.8, 0.3 of a grain increments, max charge of 29.0. As I said, we're making it up here. So I'll be watching the brass. Maybe, we might be getting ourselves into trouble here with one or the other powders, but hopefully we'll be okay. As far as primers go, I want to continue to use the CCI 450 here in the Grendel. Last few videos we've been using the CCI 450. It's done a nice job. The brass is the same batch we've been using with our new Faxon barrel. This stuff is twice fired, so that we're on our third firing here with this batch of brass. This stuff is already prepped. It's sized, it's trimmed. The case mouth has been chamfered, so we're ready for primer, powder, and bullets. So that's our brass. Does that cover it? One other thing, I did check the maximum overall length in my gun, or the overall length where it touches the lands of my rifling. I came up with 2.346 with this bullet. So we're going to back it down to magazine length, 2.260, which means we'll have about 86 thousandths of jump to the land. So that's good. Plenty of room there in our barrel. So that's it. I need to get to priming. So I was really hoping and expecting to get on the range with these guys today. But I don't think the rain is going to quit. Rain has been interrupting my life lately. More than I like. So nothing tricky about priming here. I am using the Frankford Arsenal Perfect Seat hand primer. But I'll be weighing powder here in just a second. So I was a little bit concerned about case capacity and whether just the depth, the seating depth of this bullet was going to leave enough room for powder. Here's a look at a case with the bullet seated to 2.260 and a bullet sitting beside it. It'll give you an idea about how far the bullet is protruding down into the case. So it's down in there quite a bit. But I went ahead and measured out the max charge of each of the powders and tried to get a little bit of video of what the case fill looks like. The first here is Accurate 2520. There's a fair amount of clear space there from the bottom of the shoulder to the powder level. So I think we're going to have enough room. Once we seat the bullets, we'll shake them and see if there's any leftover space in there. There's not going to be much, but maybe just a touch. And next is the Power Pro. It's a slightly bulkier powder, and this is 29 grains, where the last case was 28 grains of powder. So it's a little bit fuller. But still, these don't seem too bad. So once we get to bullet seating, hopefully we don't have any problems. All right, so our Forster Ultra Micrometer seating die is still in the press from the last time I loaded some Grendel, which I guess would have been for the ballistic gel tests for the burger bullet. So I've got it backed out a bunch. Let's get this guy dialed in. 2.260 is our target. That's way too long. One thing I've learned over in the Creedmoor videos with this bullet is they do have pretty janky me-plats, so you get a lot of overall length variation. And since we're trying to fit in a magazine, which our 6.5 Grendel magazine, we've got a little bit of slop. We don't really have to nail that 2.260 inch target necessarily, but it looks like 2.268, 2.264. There's another 2.268, 2.263. Tell you what, I'm actually going to go ahead and come down 8. So that should get this first row, all of them under 2.260. And if we end up with some compressed loads as we go along, and maybe the overall length grows just a touch, we hopefully won't run into any magazine fitment problems. So this first load here, there does seem to be just a touch of powder moving, but it's just barely. Tell you what, here's what we'll do. I've got my Hornady bullet comparator. Let's get a number on this first row. It's looking like 1.665 is the number I'm getting. Yep, 1.665. So now let me jump to the last row here with Accurate 2520 and seat a couple of these guys, and then we'll see if this overall length is stretching on us a little bit. 1.665. 1.665. Good. So I don't think these are, they're not crazy compressed. I don't feel any extra force needed to seat the bullet, so I think we're good here as far as case fill goes. That's kind of just what I was wondering. Like I'd mentioned earlier, that bullet plunging so far down below the neck, I was afraid we might just not have enough case capacity for these charge weights in this bullet. But at least with Accurate 2520, that doesn't seem to be the case. These guys are looking good. 1.665. I'll flip the camera back on here in a minute once I get the Power Pro 2000 MR charges finished, and we'll see how they do. Okay, I got my Power Pro 2000 MR charges weighed out. So let me seat a couple bullets and we'll take some overall length measurements. So I don't feel any powder moving. So I can't really tell the lightest charge here of Power Pro. Like, I think maybe I feel something moving, but if so, it's just barely. And the highest charge, definitely not. So nice full case, but I don't think, well, seating the highest charge didn't feel weird in any way. So I'm hoping that we're going to continue to have the same measurement. What was it? 1.664. That's what we had last time, right? Yeah, 1.664. 1.664. So that's our top charge. So of course the bottom charge definitely should be same way, 1.664. Good. So we got a nice full case of powder, but we're not to the point where we're marking up the bullets or putting a whole lot of pressure getting them put together. So I think we're in good shape. So that's about it here for the reloading. I'm really looking forward to seeing how these guys are going to shoot. And for me, I've got to wait till tomorrow. But for you, let's go ahead and head out to the range. All right, folks, the rain has finally stopped. It's been 2 days since I loaded up this ammunition. I'm super anxious to get it shot. So the rain's gone, a little bit of snow, but most of it has melted off and got a good day for the range here. Temperatures are halfway decent. I think it's in the 40s. No wind to speak of, so it should be perfect conditions for shooting some good groups. Tell you what, putting this 6.5 Grendel back together to get ready for the range trip here just reminded me what a sweet setup it is, man. I really like this setup. It's an 18-inch Faxon heavy fluted barrel, very light barrel. This gun is surprisingly light for what it is. It's in a Gibbs side charging upper receiver. I'm using the new LaRue MBT trigger that I just got recently. Silencer Co. Omega suppressor, magneto speed chronograph, and a 4-16 Vortex scope. So let's get started. We're shooting at 100 yards. The dots are 1 inch, and we're going to start out with accurate 25-20. 26.8 grains is our first charge. I have warmed up the gun a little bit. I had a few sighters left over. I put 5 or 6 rounds through it just to make sure it was sighted in. So the gun's kind of warmed up and we're ready to get going. All right, that's exactly the sort of performance I was hoping for out of this 140 Hornady match. It's been such a good shooter over in the 6.5 Creedmoor. I had a feeling it might be the same here in the Grendel. So we're hitting a little bit low. So I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and come up 1 minute on our scope and let's move on to 27.1 grains. The brass looked good. Velocities were good, 2150 feet per second. That's just about perfect as far as where I'd like to be here for a starting charge with this bullet. So 27.1. All right, the group's looking good, the brass is looking good, the velocity's looking good, the standard deviation's looking good, the weather's looking good. It's all good, brother. We're moving on. 27.4 grains is next. I'll tell you what, accurate 25-20 is quickly becoming one of my very favorite powders. Its performance in 223, its performance in 6.5 Grendel, it's just very impressive. Like, I haven't characterized its temperature stability very well yet. I think it might be prone to a bit of that, but man, it shoots really well. So moving right along, next up is 27.7 grains. You know, so here on the channel, I try not to play the game where I'm constantly calling bad shots. Like every shot that's not perfect, like, oh, I pulled that one. But that last group, I didn't quite feel like I did the ammo justice. Sometimes when you got rounds that are shooting so darn well that you almost start to overcompensate, like you're concentrating too hard, you're trying to hold too tight, and you get out of your flow. That's kind of how that last group felt. So I'm gonna try and chill out here a little bit. The brass still looks okay. Our velocities are getting a little bit higher than I thought they were gonna be, or they're getting right up to the point where, you know, we're gonna need to start worrying about pressure. But the brass still looks fine, so we're gonna go ahead and move on and shoot 28.0 grains. And I'm gonna try and chill out a little bit and shoot a better group. Yeah, so there's really no pressure signs to speak of here. So I find that to be pretty impressive velocity for such heavy bullets and no pressure signs. That's good stuff. So that last group, it was still a little bit bigger than our first couple, but that's okay. We've got a couple to hang our hat on. I'm very happy with the performance there with Accurate 2520. Those were great standard deviation numbers. So I'm going to give the gun just a minute to cool down. It's not really that warm, to be honest with you, but my eyes need a little bit of a break, and then we'll be back to shoot Power Pro 2000 MR. All right, folks, break time's over. The eyes are rested, which is important, right? Sometimes you need to get up off the bench and give the eyes a minute to rest a little bit. Moving on to Power Pro 2000 MR. First up is 27.8 grains. All right, so I had a little phone call interruption there, so I've lost my train of thought. Where were we? Power Pro 2000 MR, that first group, certainly not terrible. Our velocities are lagging a little bit behind from what we saw with Accurate 2520, which is okay. I'd rather start too low than start too high, right? The good news, though, is that phone call was about 224 Valkyrie. So if you're waiting on 224 Valkyrie, that phone call was definitely worth the interruption. All right, moving on. The brass looked fine, no pressure signs, of course. Velocity's looking fine. So moving on, 28.1 grains is next. Man, we are seeing some really good standard deviations today. Our worst number was back with Accurate 2520 at 10.5. And this last group, 28.1 grains of Power Pro 2000 MR at 4.8. That was our second in the fours. So very consistent velocities. That's good stuff. Next up, 28.4 grains. Brass still looking just fine. All right, there's a group. So that's another standard deviation down in the fours. Nice, 4.1. Outstanding group. No pressure signs, of course. The velocities are still pretty mild here with Power Pro 2000 MR. So we're moving on. 28.7 grains. All right, so that group opened up just a touch. That was our worst standard deviation of the day as well. But it's still not bad. We've got no pressure signs. Last up, 29.0 grains. All right, I think I've got enough of the mud wiped off of the brass here that we can have a look. Here's our max charge with accurate 2520. Nice round primers. This brass has been a little bit chewed up in previous firings, you know, a few pressure signs here and there. I don't see anything new. Yeah, nothing at all. So I think we were still just fine with accurate 2520, and Power Pro 2000 MR was the same way. Primers are nice and round. Can't tell if that's something old or if it's just some leftover dirt and grimy stuff. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not new. So didn't really spot anything on the brass today. So let's have one more quick look at the velocities here. So these were the accurate 2520 groups. We made it up to 2,279 feet per second. And looking at the brass and knowing what the case fill looked like, we could certainly push it a little bit more. But our accuracy looked like it was falling apart. Whether or not we could push it farther enough to maybe, I don't know, get into that next accuracy node or whatever is an open question. But I think back at the beginning of this video, I predicted or, you know, hoped we would hit 2250. So we hit and exceeded that. So can't be unhappy about our velocities at all. And those are pretty good looking standard deviation numbers with accurate 2520. So all around good stuff with accurate 2520. Now onto the Power Pro 2000 MR. We barely made it past 2200 feet per second. So whether we could jam another, you know, grain or so of powder in the case to get Power Pro up to the 2300 feet per second sort of realm, I don't know. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, the smarter move might be to switch to Power Pro Varmint and see where that would get us as far as the Alliant powders go. But these numbers certainly weren't bad. So let's have a look at all the groups here at once. I am extremely happy with the accuracy we saw. Both of the middle charges were our best groups. 27.4 grains with accurate 2520 was a 0.610 inch group. And right below it, 28.4 with Power Pro 2000 MR was a 0.504 inch group. We haven't tested enough bullets in this barrel yet to really characterize its capabilities. But I mean, this is hanging right in there with what we saw out of the 135 grain Berger Classic Hunter, which was a really good shooting bullet in this barrel. So this is all good, man. You know, up with accurate 2520. So once we got a little bit higher, the 27.7 grain group opened up to 1.17 inches. That was the one out on the range where I was talking about. Like, that just didn't feel like a good group. I didn't feel like I shot very well in that group. But the next group, 28.0, I felt good. And that one was still up at, you know, 1.013 inches, almost kind of double group in there with some vertical stringing. So I don't know. If we decide to pursue this crazy combination, I mean, that would be what I would want to do, is maybe push accurate 2520 a little bit harder and see where we can get with it. But overall, extremely happy. Like, anytime I can try out a bullet in a gun for the first time and get 8 out of 10 groups under an inch, that's good shooting for me. You know, and the vast majority of these were comfortably under an inch. So we had 3 that were 0.6s, a couple that were 0.7s, we had a 0.5, so that's good stuff, man. That's just good stuff. So I was curious to run the numbers and see just how stupid this is. And it's not quite as stupid as I thought. Like, I put the numbers into the Hornady ballistic calculator over there on their site, and I tried to be conservative. Like, for velocity, I put in 2,250 feet per second, even though we, you know, made it up to 2,280. So tried to be conservative with the numbers, and this is absolutely still supersonic at 1,000 yards. The G1 ballistic coefficient on this guy, I think it's a 580. Yeah, it's a .580. And if we go to like the 123 grain bullets, like we generally shoot in the Grendel, the 123 grain ELD match is a 461, which they get weird about how they measure their BCs. So that might not be a fair comparison. Well, the 123 grain SST shows it being a .510. So I don't know, man. I guess what I'm getting at is, you know, we're giving up a lot of velocity here, and this is kind of a goofy combination, but the high ballistic coefficient does make up for a bit of it. I don't know. You know, I don't really have much long-range experience, so maybe there are other factors at play that make it stupid that I'm not aware of. But it was a fun little test today, and we shot some really good groups. So it gets a thumbs up in my book. So I'll wait and see what you guys have to say. Whether, like, are you interested in this at all? The heavy bullets in the Grendel? Do you want me to try more? You know, since I've got a 6.5 Creedmoor now, I've got a decent sampling of the heavier bullets. I think it's fun to test just out of just pure curiosity. Whether or not they're practical or not, it's just curious to see how they perform. And I know several of you guys are bugging me to test light bullets as well in the Grendel, and I'll need to get into that. I'll test some of those, you know, soon. I'm just not a light bullet guy. I don't know, like they just don't blow my skirt up, you know? So I haven't tested a lot of light bullets in Grendel, but I'll get around to it because I know there's a fair number of you guys who want to see it. So I think that's it. I'm rambling, which means it's time to call it quits. So if you'd like to help support my channel, you can come to patreon.com/reloading. You can also check out my affiliate links down in the description of the video. I just added Palmetto State Armory. So if you're shopping at Brownells or Amazon.com or Optics Planet or Natchez Shooter Supplies or Fax and Barrels or Ballistic Advantage Barrels, I've got affiliate accounts with these people. If you click on my link to get to their site, they give me a little referral fee when you make a purchase. Doesn't cost you a dime, and it helps support the channel. So I appreciate it, guys. I'll see you next time.